You've probably heard of Dr. Michael Brown, right? Christian apologist, author, well-known in faith circles. But over the last few years, there's been a lot of noise surrounding his name. Serious allegations that have stirred up some major conversations. But first, you gotta understand, it's not just about the allegations. It's about reputation, power dynamics, and accountability. It's messy, and this story is definitely not straightforward. And we've got a lot of sources for this one, from independent investigation reports to personal testimonies, even some emails, all pointing to accusations against Dr. Brown. So yeah, it's about to get real. All right, let's get into it. So for years, Dr. Michael Brown was seen as a bold defender of truth, right? I mean, the man was respected for his integrity, especially in Christian circles. People trusted him. But then, boom, these allegations start surfacing, and they start casting doubt on that reputation. The first case involves a woman named Sarah Monk. She used to be Dr. Brown's assistant. She came forward with some pretty disturbing claims, things she described as spiritual manipulation. And what exactly did she say went down? Well, Sarah says Dr. Brown crossed some serious lines. We're talking about things like hand-holding, kissing on the forehead, even occasional smacking on the butt. Oh, and late-night meetings too, like at Walmart of all places. Now, the second case is even more complicated. This one involves a married woman who we're going to call Kim. Kim claims that Dr. Brown crossed some major boundaries with her, spiritual and emotional boundaries especially. It started off as what seemed like a normal, professional relationship, but quickly escalated into something far more personal, turning into verbal, email, and phone exchanges that became, well, erotic.
We now know after the investigation that it was a verbal, a textual email, and then a phone erotic relationship that progressed over many months until it got to a place that was quite unclean. And according to Ray, the husband, that included Mike pressuring this woman, Kim, into not sleeping with her own husband, which shows a desire for possession. You know, you're mine. You don't belong to him. You belong to me.
That is a direct assault upon the marriage.
Yes. And he pressured Kim to meet him in a public place. When I say public, I mean outside the home, privately. And she would not do those things.
Yeah, this is heavy stuff. But here's where it gets really interesting. These things supposedly happened years ago. So why are they coming out now? That's a good question. The information started coming to light around 2019. The timing seems to be connected to Dr. Brown's involvement in addressing allegations against another public figure, Todd Bentley. You remember that mess? Yeah, well, that whole situation sparked a bigger conversation in the community, one about leadership and accountability. And apparently that got former students from Dr. Brown's fire school to start reflecting and sharing their own concerns about his behavior. Fire school, by the way, is Dr. Brown's ministry training institute. An independent investigation did take place. It was carried out by Firefly Investigations, led by James Holler Jr. They looked at everything: abuse, manipulation, deception, grooming, even coercion. Basically anything that went down involving that power dynamic. And it wasn't just physical stuff. These guys went deep, covering every angle. Dr. Brown's ministry, the Line of Fire, they supposedly cooperated fully with the investigation. Firefly said there were no restrictions. They have full access to everything. Sounds like they were playing it straight, right? But here's where it gets crazy. Fast forward to April 2025 when that Firefly Report is finally done. Now, instead of things wrapping up clean, things took a sharp turn. Even though Dr. Brown publicly promised to cooperate, and even though Firefly said they have full access, his Elder Accountability Board, the people supposed to keep him in check, they rejected and even rewrote parts of the report. So what did they change? Well, one major change had to do with how Dr. Brown handled questions about the allegations. Firefly said for the past 25 years, Dr. Brown had been deflecting questions about misconduct, calling it a calculated effort to protect his ministry's reputation. It was all about damage control. But guess what the board did? They flat out rejected that. Instead, they came out with a statement saying Dr. Brown had been honest and remorseful every time he was questioned about it. honest, and remorseful. That's a huge flip from what Firefly said. And it's not just that, oh no. The second change was about what kind of misconduct we're talking about. Firefly called it sexually abusive misconduct, emphasizing that Dr. Brown abused his position as a spiritual leader, using that power imbalance to cross boundaries. But the board, they didn't like that wording. They swapped it for leadership misconduct. You see what they're doing here? They're trying to downplay it, make it sound less serious so that they can eventually bring Dr. Brown back into the ministry without causing too much of a stir. And here's what this all tells us. Despite Dr. Brown's commitment to an independent investigation, when that investigation actually confirmed the allegations, the board got defensive. They literally rewrote the findings to make him look better. It's like they backed away from the whole idea of real accountability the second it didn't fit their narrative. So what's the takeaway here? Well, it's clear. When the independent scrutiny hit too close to home, the people who were supposed to be holding him into account started covering for him. They changed the narrative to make sure Dr. Brown could get back in the ministry without all the mess following him. I don't know about you, but it seems like accountability only goes as far as it's convenient.
But here's the thing. It's not just about these two specific cases. Nah, when you dig deeper, you start seeing something way bigger than just a couple of messed up incidents. You start seeing a pattern. And I'm not talking about one or two isolated cases here. This looks like a whole environment, a culture that fostered this kind of behavior. Take Fire School, for example. It was supposed to be a ministry training institute, right? But many students, especially women, saw Dr. Brown as this spiritual father figure. And here's the thing, Dr. Brown acknowledged it at first. He called it a father-daughter dynamic. But then, when the heat came on, he tried to distance himself from that whole family aspect. You see how it's changing as the pressure builds? But the stories coming out from women who were involved, yeah, they don't paint a pretty picture. One woman said her involvement with Dr. Brown was extremely unhealthy. She talked about him signing emails with "Love, Dad." She even mentioned how he'd invite young women to his home, on trips, sometimes even in the hotel rooms. She said it crossed every professional and ethical boundary. But here's the kicker. She wasn't his daughter. She was a student, an employee, not his family. But Dr. Brown made it feel like that was the dynamic. And this wasn't some loosey-goosey environment. Oh no, Fire School had strict rules, like intense purity culture. Students could get expelled for minor things like watching R-rated movies or even dancing. You telling me they're pushing these ultra-strict policies on students, yet Dr. Brown was out here doing his own thing, watching R-rated Woodstock clips in his office with topless women, wrapping his arm around female students and pulling them close? That's hypocrisy. And then there's the massage table. Yeah, one witness said they saw a massage table set up in Dr. Brown's office, and guess who was on it? Sarah Monk. Like, how much more do we need to see here? This is a serious disconnect between the rules being preached and the personal conduct being lived out. So what does all this tell us? It tells us that this whole thing goes way beyond these two cases. We're looking at a pattern, a system where the boundaries were crossed, where power was abused, and where the truth got buried under manipulation and control. It's bigger than Dr. Brown. It's about the culture he created. And at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves who's really being held accountable here.
Dr. Brown publicly said he'd fully cooperate with an independent investigation. He's out here saying, yeah, let's get to the bottom of this. I'm ready for transparency. But then you look deeper, and it's clear that information was being managed, and I mean managed. There's no other way to put it. Key leadership figures like Stephen Ott and Robert Gladstone didn't even know the full story for years. They were kept in the dark about the serious details until much, much later. That's some next-level damage control, right? And it doesn't stop there. Back in 2003, Londa Parker confronted Dr. Brown and his wife about some troubling behavior, hand-holding, back-rubbing with students. And what did Dr. Brown do? He denied it, of course. And then, to flip the script, he accused Londa of not having the fruit of the Spirit for not believing him. Now that right there, that's a classic move, turning it around on the accuser. Instead of addressing the concerns, it's like, if you're questioning me, you're the one in the wrong. And that's a pattern that keeps popping up here. over 2 decades of deflecting, suppressing, and managing information. Fast forward to December 2024. Dr. Brown allegedly gets on a video call with missionaries, and you know what he tells them? He says, don't share anything publicly. And this is after all the info's already out there. He calls it a betrayal of confidence before God. Like, come on, man. It fits right into this recurring effort to keep things under wraps, to minimize the wrongdoing, and to keep his image intact. But yo, let's talk about the Firefly Report. The independent investigation was pretty clear on what they found. They said Dr. Brown was involved in an inappropriate relationship with Kim. And with Sarah, they called his behavior sexually abusive misconduct. They laid it out. They made it clear that while intent is hard to prove, Dr. Brown created a situation where Sarah felt uncomfortable. She even said it herself. That's harassment, no doubt. Now, despite that, we know the board came in and rewrote some parts of the report. They turned sexually abusive misconduct into leadership misconduct. That right there tells you everything you need to know about how this whole thing was handled. They rewrote the story to make Dr. Brown look better so he could get back in the ministry with just a few light recommendations. But here's where it hits hard for me. It's about power, especially in spiritual or mentor-type relationships. And when you're in that position of power, things get so easily blurred. That's where we run into problems, right? The boundaries are crossed, the lines are unclear, and suddenly you've got people who trust you feeling uncomfortable, manipulated, or worse. And that's what this whole thing really highlights, the way people in power, especially spiritual leaders, can manipulate situations, manage the narrative, and in this case, even rewrite the story to protect themselves. It's crazy how fast a reputation can fall apart when allegations start to come to light. But what's even crazier is watching how those in power try to manage the fallout. So at the end of the day, this whole situation has us asking some serious questions, right? About leadership, trust, accountability, and how hard it really is to find the truth when the people in power are doing everything they can to control the story. And honestly, it makes you question the very system that's supposed to be holding these people accountable. So I'm going to leave you with this. How do you feel about spiritual authority now, especially in light of everything we just talked about? And what about the accountability structures, or the lack of them, that are supposed to protect people in these situations?